Wesley Graves. Book 2. The 4 Points Outdoor Secret. By Jake Griffus. "I want this entire area sectioned off," Alistair yelled. "We have very little time." Alistair Pandorus was a wild game hunter at heart, but his true calling was a wild game of searching for some of the most infamous cryptids of legend and lore. Over his long years, he had searched from the Loch Ness Monster to the Jersey Devil, and everything in between. It had taken a toll on him physically. His hair was dark, but faded to gray as it wrapped around his head, and his intense eyes were framed by the wrinkles of secrets he would hold until the day he died. He listened for the telltale signs, the knocking of trees, or the hoot of their calling. He knew that he had to have the right spot. An entire life's work had come down to this. It had to be here. From the small clearing he could see a pair of headlights. They beamed down the hill just a few yards away from where he was standing. "What is the meaning of this?" he shouted. He held his hand up to block the light. "This is private property! Who is there? Show yourself!" The car sat for a moment. There was no answer. All that could be heard was the humming of the engine. He yelled again. "Who is there? I demand you show yourself!" Slowly, the driver's side door opened. "Alistair Pandorus? Is that you?" the man from the car asked. Yes, it's me. Who are you?" Alistair insisted. "Oh, I think you are well aware of who I am," the man shouted back. "Show yourself, sir, or I will be forced to take action," Alistair warned and held up a large rifle. "Oh, really? And how do you plan to do that, old man? Knock me out with your tranquilizer gun?" the shadowy man replied and let out a heavy laugh. "I will do it by any means necessary. Now show yourself." The man on the hill was silent. Then, after a short standoff, he walked down through the trail of the grassy patches. "Last I heard, you were in Mexico," the man said as he moved closer to Alistair. "What brings you back to the small town of 4 Points? Did you forget that you owe me one of those famous lasagna dinners your wife makes?" Alistair still could not make out the man's face through the silhouette he cast. He was apprehensive about the fact that the man knew about his wife and his location for the last few years. "As I recall, you left in the middle of a conversation exactly 5 years ago. I didn't mind paying for the apple pie and coffee, but all you could talk about was that small creature. Let me see, you kept calling it a chupacabra, right?" Alistair slowly lowered his tranquilizer gun. "It can't be," he whispered to himself. Then a smile slowly rolled across his wrinkled face. "Max? Is that you?" The man came into view. His bald head reflected the flashlight's glare as they struck across the clearing. His glasses held a pair of friendly blue eyes. "Max, it is you! How have you been, old boy? It's been ages," Alistair said as he threw his rifle behind his back. He offered his hand to shake, but the handshake quickly turned into an embrace, which was long overdue for both of them. "Stand back. Let me take a look at you, old boy." Alistair put his hands on Max's shoulder and pushed him back slightly. "I must say, you really have done well for yourself. Let me guess, CIA, FBI?" Max was dressed in a dark suit, and his red tie glowed in the night as it was settled against an equally bright white dress shirt. "Well, I'm not at liberty to say, I'm sorry. You know the rules," Max replied with a grin. "Well, in any case, it's good to see you again. What brings you out here at this time of night?" Alistair asked. "I was about to ask you the same thing. What are you doing out here?" Max watched the men setting up a perimeter. They mumbled to each other while putting up floodlights on tall yellow stands. Alistair put his arm around Max's shoulder and began to walk him away from the other men. He trusted his team with a lot, but this might just drive them away. "Well, I think I found it. I thought it was just a myth, but now I'm absolutely positive. I've got it this time." "Oh, really? What is that?" "As far as I knew, there weren't any strange creatures here in 4 Points. This is a rather small town. I can't imagine anything happening here that the people don't already know. Word travels fast. If anything was out here, I would have heard about it, along with just about everyone else in town," Max chuckled. "No, I'm positive. I've tracked its migration patterns. This is the spot. I've spent my entire life seeking it, and now I think it's here, in this small town. It goes by many names. Yeti, Sasquatch, Oma. Max stopped and looked directly at his friend. You're not talking about big. Ah! One of the workers shouted from the edge of the clearing as his body was pulled back into a large bush. Flashlights shot in the direction of the scream. Suddenly another man was pulled into the thick woods. The other man ran out of the clearing with their tools in hand. As they did, their screams were quickly muffled as each one of them were pulled into the trees by a hidden force. Alistair searched for a target as he watched his workers one by one being snatched up. He searched through the crosshairs of the sight that was poised on top of the tranquilizer gun. Max pushed the barrel down. We have to go now. Wait, I see it. I just need one shot. No, we have to go now, Max shouted. He grabbed Alistair's vest and dragged him back toward the dark SUV. Alistair laughed hysterically. Ha ha, you see? I knew they were here. I just knew it. You're lucky they didn't grab you, Max shouted. His hands fumbled for the keys. Once he found them, he jabbed them into the ignition. The SUV kicked up a cloud of loose gravel as it shot down the overgrown path and out of the woods. On their way, they almost hit a sign which read, 4 Points, Outdoor Education Center.